People say time heals, but I have lived long enough to know time does not heal. It teaches you how to carry the heaviness without drowning in it. And tonight, we speak of a boy named Ethan. No, not a boy, a grown man, strong on the outside, but inside, inside, he was still holding the soft hands of his grandmother in memory and never wanting to let go. You see, I read something recently, a confession posted on the quiet corner of the internet, where souls go when they cannot hold their feelings alone anymore. A place called True Off My Chest. I find the stories there raw, soft things wrapped in sharp edges, people who have wept silently behind locked doors. This one began simply. 2 years ago, I lost my father, my grandfather, and my grandmother in 2 months. And I stopped right there. Not because I didn't want to read more, but because I felt it. There is a particular grief that comes when the people who raised you begin to disappear, one by one, until the house you remember in your mind stands full of ghosts, laughter echoing in rooms that no longer exist. Ethan knew that grief, and so did I. The story he shared was not loud, not dramatic, no villains, no betrayal, just the slow erosion of time and the cruel way life asks us to choose between becoming someone and staying with the people who already loved us exactly as we are. Ethan left home to chase education, opportunity, a future. His grandmother, she was the soft place his spirit rested, the one who pressed her cheek to his hair when he cried as a child, the one who believed he would do great things. She never asked for anything back, just that he remembered to eat, rest, and come home when he could. But time is a clever thief. Dreams are hungry, and life does not wait for us to feel ready. The boy became a man, the man became busy, and the calls became shorter, the visits became fewer, until one day there were no more visits left to make. He returned for his father's final rites. He could not return again for his grandparents. This happens to many of us. We promise next month, next year, soon, because we believe we have more time than we do. And then one day we are standing alone, holding a grief so heavy we cannot breathe. Ethan asked a question in his story, not to the world, but to himself. How meaningful is achievement if the people you wanted to make proud aren't here to see it? I felt that question down to the marrow of my bones, because I too once chased something I thought mattered. I too believed that becoming successful would repay the love I received, and I too returned to an empty chair at the kitchen table. So tonight, children, grandchildren, listeners from every quiet corner of the world, tonight I will tell you Ethan's story. Not the polished version, not the version people post for sympathy, but the version we tell only when our hearts finally soft enough to let the truth rise to the surface. This is not a story of failure. It is not a story of regret alone. It is a story of how grief, when held gently, can become love with nowhere to go until we learn where to place it. And if you are new here, if you have never heard me speak before, go back and listen to last week's story. We are building a tapestry of lives, women and men who were not heard when they cried the first time. But tonight, hush your heart. Let us walk with Ethan. Let us return to the kitchen where his grandmother once stood, stirring a pot of lentils while humming a tune older than memory. Let us see her smile. Let us see the love in her eyes when she looked at him. Then let us feel the moment he realized he would never see that smile again. This is where his story begins. This is where our story begins. Let's begin.
Ethan was the kind of child who felt everything too deeply. He was born with that quiet softness, the kind that makes a child careful with bugs on the sidewalk, or the last slice of bread, or the tone of someone's voice. And children like that, they do not survive childhood unchanged. The world teaches them to harden or break. But his grandmother? She protected that softness like a candle in a storm. Her name was Mara, not grandmother, not Nana. She called her by her name because she insisted love has no hierarchy, only closeness. Mara meant home. When he was 5, she would sit him on her lap and brush his hair with her fingers, not to style it, just to soothe him, just to tell him without words, "You are safe." And he believed her, because Mara never raised her voice, never turned love into something he had to earn. Love was something he already was. But life was not as gentle. His father worked long hours. His mother was often tired. His grandfather was stern, practical. The world, even at home, had rules. But Mara was different. She believed in tenderness like it was a religion. She taught Ethan how to pour water without spilling, peel fruit slowly, speak to plants as if they could hear, and to always say thank you to the world, even when the world was unkind. She told him, kindness is not weakness, it is memory. It tells the world you still remember how to love. He grew in that warmth, but as he got older, something else began to grow too. Expectation. Everyone saw that Ethan was quick, a mind sharp as riverlight and twice as restless. Teachers said he was promising. Relatives said he would go far. Strangers looked at him like he was already someone. And praise, real praise, is a dangerous thing for a child with a good heart, because they don't want to disappoint anyone. So Ethan started running. Not literally, but running toward a future that was growing faster than he was. There were contests, exams, scholarships, results posted on notice boards, people clapping, smiling, saying, "He's doing so well. He's going places. He'll be the pride of the family." He liked hearing that. Of course he did. But every time someone said it, a stitch tightened inside his chest because he knew what they meant. Success is love. Achievement is worth. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't rest. Don't return. And he wanted to make Mara proud. Oh, he wanted that more than breath. But Mara, she never cared about the trophies. She cared about him. She would say, "Ethan, sit, eat, talk to me about your day." But he would glance at the time, the deadlines, the goals, and say, "Later, Mara, I'm almost done. Just a little more. I need to work." She would smile, soft, tired, and say, "I'll be here." But time is not forever. People are not forever. Love is forever, but the bodies that hold love, they are not. Years went by like seasons changing too fast for the trees to understand. Ethan grew tall, his back straightened, his voice deepened, and the world applauded. But Mara grew smaller. Her hands trembled when she lifted the kettle. Her steps became short, careful, quiet. The world stopped applauding her a long time ago. And Ethan? He did not see it. Because love hides its own dying. One day, he left. Not permanently, not intentionally, just for next steps. University, opportunities, work, becoming someone. He said goodbye with a hug that was too quick, a hug that promised, "I'll be back soon." She pressed her face to his chest and breathed him in as if she already knew the truth. He would return, but not in the same world he left. And she whispered, voice thin as morning air, "I am proud of you now. Not later, not when you accomplish anything. Now, always." He laughed, said something like, "I'll call you, Mara, don't worry." And he did call. At first, then less. Then messages, voice notes, a shared picture of morning coffee instead of conversation, a "how are you?" typed instead of spoken. The world pulls harder than love. Then came the first death, his father. The shock split him in half. Grief is sharp when it first arrives, shattering. He rushed home. He performed every ritual with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Mara held him as he cried, though her own body was already fading like autumn leaves losing color. But he didn't notice because pain makes us blind. After the funeral, he returned again to the life he had built elsewhere, still grieving, still running, still trying to transform loss into achievement. Time passed, too fast. And then one day, 2 phone calls. His grandfather gone, his grandmother failing quickly. He stared at his plane ticket, at his workload, at the life he had built so far away. And he hesitated, not for selfishness, but because grief had exhausted him. He told himself, "I can't do this again. I can't watch another person die. I'll go soon. Just soon." Soon is the most dangerous word in any language. Mara passed in her sleep, peacefully, softly, the way gentle people leave the world without taking anything with them. When Ethan heard the news, something inside him did not break. It went silent. The kind of silence that does not cry, does not scream, does not ask why. The silence that comes when the part of you that knew unconditional love is gone. He did not go home. He did not attend her final rites. He could not. Not because he didn't care, but because caring hurt too much. And because some losses arrive too large to look at directly. But grief? Grief always waits. It waited for him in every quiet morning, every accomplishment, every moment he should have felt happy, because no joy feels complete when the person you wanted to show it to is no longer alive to see it. And that is the heart of Ethan's story. Not failure, not neglect, not abandonment, but the impossible truth. We cannot be everywhere love needs us to be. And we don't realize that until love is no longer here. His grandmother didn't die angry. She didn't leave feeling forgotten. She carried him in her last breath, the same way she carried him when he was 5 years old. But he carries the ache. The ache is love that has nowhere to go. And this is where his healing begins.
Grief is not a moment. It is not the day someone dies. It is not the funeral. It is not the condolences, the casseroles, the hands gripping your shoulder saying, "Be strong." Grief is what happens after everyone goes back to their lives. When the world has moved on and you are still living in the house of your memories. Ethan learned this. After everything, all the loss, all the silence, life did not stop for him. The world did not pause. His deadline still came. His responsibility still pressed against his chest like weight he wasn't sure he could carry. And people tried to comfort him, but comfort from those who have not lost deeply often falls thin, like a blanket that does not reach the feet. They said, "You have to move on." They wouldn't want you to be sad. "You're strong, you'll get through this." Time heals. Time does not heal. Time only teaches you how to walk while bleeding. There were days when Ethan woke up and worked like he always had. He answered emails, went to meetings, drank coffee that had gone cold in his hands. He learned to perform the ritual of being alive. But in the quiet moments, when the sun had not yet risen or when the world had already gone to sleep, that is when grief returned. Not loud, not screaming, just there, a familiar shadow sitting at the edge of his bed. And grief would say softly, "Do you remember her hands?" And Ethan would. He would remember the way Mara held the teacup with both hands, even when she only needed one. He would remember the small circle she rubbed into his back when he was anxious. He would remember the way her voice warmed when he said his name. He would remember her saying, "I'm proud of you now." And that memory was both salvation and wound. Because the truth was, he wasn't running from the grief of losing her. He was running from the guilt of not being there. Guilt is a quiet poison. It does not destroy you all at once. It dissolves you slowly, thought by thought, memory by memory. Ethan began to ask the questions that only come when we have lost something irreplaceable. What was I chasing? What was I proving? To whom? For what? And when the world celebrated him, when he achieved something meaningful, impressive, admirable, he would feel nothing. Not because the achievement meant nothing, but because achievement without witness is lonely. The people he wanted to make proud were gone. He learned the truth people rarely say aloud. Success does not fill the places where love used to live. And yet, this is the part most people do not understand about grief. The weight you feel, the ache that doesn't end, the heaviness in your chest, it is not the absence of love. It is proof that the love was real. You do not grieve what you did not love. And Ethan began to understand something slow
difficult, and deeply human. He would never get over losing Mara. He would never move on. He would never wake one morning and feel healed. But he could learn to live differently. Not to fix the past, not to undo the distance, not to rewrite time, but to choose presence now. To show up to the lives of the living. To say yes more often to the people who care. To call before it is too late. To sit down and eat while someone is still here to cook with him. To speak love while the ears that need to hear it are still listening. This is the lesson grief whispers. Not to make you suffer, but to make you love more honestly. Ethan began to honor Mara not with tears, but with the way he lived. He said her name when he watered his plants. He bought fruit and peeled it slowly, the way she taught him. He learned to rest. He learned to step away from his work when someone he loved said, "Sit, talk to me." Because love is not measured in grand gestures. It is measured in time. And grief, if you let it, can become a compass. Not pointing backwards, not pointing to regret, but pointing to love. The kind that exists now, in this moment, in this breath, and whoever is still here to hold your hand. This is where Ethan's story turns. Not toward happiness, not toward resolution, but to understanding. The ache will remain. Of course it will. But the ache is love refusing to die. And love, real love, is not something we should ever want to let go of.
Sometimes we do not get to be there for the final goodbye. Sometimes the last conversation was rushed, distracted, half listened to. Sometimes the love we meant to give later never finds its way into words. And that hurts. It hurts in a way that no language fully explains. But I want you to hear me now. Love is not measured in the final moment. Love is measured in the whole of a life. You do not lose your place in someone's heart because you were late. You do not erase the years of tenderness because time moved too quickly. You do not fail love simply because you were human. Ethan believed, for a long time, that he should have been there. That love meant being present every time, every moment, every goodbye. But love, real love, is not that fragile. Mara did not love him because he sat at her table every evening. She loved him because he was hers, because she saw his heart when he was small and gentle and unsure of the world. She watched him grow and stumble and rise and try again. She did not want him to stay small so she could keep him close. She wanted him to walk into the world she would never see. She wanted him to build something only he could build. Love is generous that way. It expands, it releases, it blesses you to go. Ethan thought his absence meant he failed her, but the truth is simpler, quieter, kinder. He became exactly the man she believed he could be. And that is how he honors her. Not by grieving forever, not by punishing himself with guilt, but by living in a way that carries her forward. He does not pray to her. He does not speak to her photograph. He does not try to recreate the past. He lives with her in the small choices. He waters plants patiently. He thanks the world even on the days it feels heavy. He pauses when someone he loves speaks. He makes time where he once rushed. And in those quiet, ordinary acts, she lives, because that is what love does. It becomes memory, and then it becomes guide. You see, grief is not an enemy. Grief is love with nowhere to go. But over time, slowly, we learn to give it somewhere to rest, in patience, in gentleness, in presence, in being here now with the people who are still alive to love us back. So if you are listening to this and you feel like Ethan, if there is someone you lost, if there is a goodbye you never got to say, come sit by me a little longer. Let me tell you something Mara once told him with a voice thin as thread, but strong as the sun. You do not honor the dead by grieving them forever. You honor them by living a life they would be proud to see. And I believe this. I believe it with all my remaining years. The people who loved you most do not want your sorrow. They want your living. They want your table to be full. They want your laughter to return. They want you to love someone the way they loved you. Grief is not the end of love. It is the doorway to a different kind of love, a love that stays even when the hands are gone. So breathe. Live gently. Call someone while they are still here. Make time, make room, make love visible. Mara's story, Ethan's story, it is not about regret. It is about the truth that love does not end. It changes form, but it does not end. And if you are listening now, holding a loss in your chest, you are not alone. Come, rest here a moment longer. I am here.
Ah, my dear ones, we've come to the edge of this story together. The one about Ethan and the void left when those we love vanish before we can share our triumphs. I feel it still, in my chest, a weight that never fully lifts, a silence that fills the spaces between the words we never said. And yet, here we are, you and I, breathing, witnessing, learning. Ethan's tale doesn't end with applause or certificates. It ends in the quiet, in the echo of memories, in the stubborn persistence of a life carried forward despite the ache. I see you there, listening, perhaps remembering someone you've lost, someone you couldn't say goodbye to, or perhaps someone you fear losing still. And that fear, it shapes us. It teaches us the preciousness of the ordinary, the smell of a kitchen, the creak of a floorboard, the way a smile lingers in your mind long after the person has gone. I close my journal slowly now, my hands trembling not from weakness, but from the reverence I hold for these stories. Each word etched here is a testament, not to my life, but to the lives of those who cannot speak for themselves. Ethan's parents, his grandparents, their sacrifices, their love, their quiet endurance, they ripple through him even in their absence, shaping every step. And isn't that what we all carry? A mosaic of those who came before us, whose voices whisper in our ears when the world is too loud, when the world forgets. So I leave you here with your own thoughts, your own memories, your own silent gratitude or grief. Hold it close, let it teach you, and let it remind you that living fully, even amidst sorrow, is a tribute to those who made our lives possible. But do not go too far yet, for the next story waits. Another truth, another voice, another soul who has endured in silence far too long. And perhaps, just perhaps, you'll see a reflection of yourself in her journey. Her name, her secrets, her courage will be revealed to us soon. I cannot tell you all of it now, for some truths are sweeter when they arrive slowly, like dawn brushing the horizon with gold. So, my children, my listeners, hold your loved ones a little closer tonight. Speak the words you've been saving.
Sit in the quiet with someone who matters. And when you are ready, come back. For I will be here, waiting with my journal, my stories, and the whispers of those who can no longer speak for themselves. Remember, grief is not a path to be completed. It is a river to be carried across, stone by stone, breath by breath. And in that crossing, we learn what it truly means to honor life, to honor love, to honor the echoes of those who came before us. Until then, keep your hearts open, your memories alive, and your courage steadfast. The next story will arrive, and I promise it will demand your tears, your empathy, and perhaps a quiet moment of your own truth.